everybody, and welcome to another episode of the She Myth Eliminator Stories. This morning, guys, you may recognize this wonderful woman that I've got with me on the show this morning. Marianne Clair has been on a number of my shows, and I actually asked her to come back specifically to tell her story on the She Myth Eliminator, because what she has done over the last, God knows how many years has been absolutely magnificent. And some of the things that she's doing right now, we as women often try to hold everything together, try to be the martyr of everything. And at times we find ourselves not always able to do that. And one of the things that she is very, very passionate about now is making sure that women take care of themselves. So we're going to take this conversation wherever it goes, because I know for Marianne right now, the fact that she is even with us today is, a testament to her commitment to women. So I want to say thank you very much for being here, given, our circumstances. We all have these different circumstances, and sometimes, guys, we know that what you sometimes see on the screen, behind the curtain, behind the the walls, there's a lot of other stuff going on. And I know that that's not just me or Marianne, but that's a lot of you women out there who front up day after day, just step up, standing firm, and trying to stand out, also knowing that there's a lot of other things going on in your life. So I want to commend her for being here today, and I want to say thank you very much for doing all the things that you do. We'll also give you guys a little bit of she might have some background noise going on, so that's life. We just carry on. Welcome, Marianne.
Thank you, Tracy. It's so good to be here with you again. I love these conversations. Anytime I can come and spend time with you and delve into conversations, I really love it, because you are up to amazing things, and especially this Eliminator story in the She Myth book. I just commend you with all you are doing to help women forward our place in the world.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, look, let's start by giving everybody a bit of background to you and some of the things that I suppose part of your journey, and maybe we'll delve into one or two instances where I know what a she myth is. So I'm going to ask you to sort of share a couple of instances where you've experienced that, and what steps did you take to overcome those?
Well, I have to clear the elephant in the room right now. So as you all can see, I am at the hospital, and I'm in like a family room, kind of meeting room, and there's nurses coming and going. So I just want to kind of put that out there so you kind of know what's going on. And I'm not really rude and not having a bad background, but because of these wonderful platforms that we have and these wonderful day in society, we can be anywhere. And Tracy can be over in the down under, and me in the USA. And, we can have these amazing conversations. So my background is I'm the baby of the family as a woman, and I have two older siblings, and that's kind of where my journey begins. As my parents got divorced when I was about 6 years old, and they sat me down on a couch. I had a very pampered lifestyle before that, very white privilege, middle class, where I had a maid and yardmen, and we weren't super uber wealthy, but we had a nice life. And my parents sat me down on the couch and gave me a pen and paper and said, Marianne, you're going to have to take on these responsibilities, and you're going to have to help out, taking care of your older brother and sister. So right there was the beginning of my journey of taking care of everybody else. Right there, when I was 5 to 6 years old, I became a caregiver. Oh, that's pretty intense when you go to start thinking back on, cooking and cleaning and doing all those things. And it progressed even to the point of, I'm here in the hospital because my daughter is ill and she's in the hospital, and I needed to come and just give her a boost up, give her some energy, give her some life, give her some wonderful, love, mama love. So that's kind of the beginning of the journey. Then I don't know, you want me to go from there? You want to pop in and let's talk about that for a minute, and then I'll give them what I
Yeah,
do and all that sort of
let's
thing.
talk about that. Let's kind of delve a little bit deeper into. You want to go into being the youngest and kind of the responsibility that you had, and obviously that then turning into that's kind of molded me into this caregiving framework, so to speak, that then started to create the trajectory of your life from there on. So let's talk a little bit about that and how that unfolded.
It did. It did so much. So, I can remember that I pretty much stopped playing a lot at that point, and I became more serious and took on the roles of, my mom was working, and she was a stay-at-home mom before that, but she went off to work. So then there were a lot of responsibilities that I took on, having, dinner cooked, and, I'm just this little itty bitty thing, and vacuuming and cleaning and doing the things because, we were kind of on our own. Then my mom was, at a point where she was just trying to make it. So, it was a journey of going from there, taking care of my older brother and sister, and having dinner done for my mom, then rolling into my first relationship, and I carried on, and marriage, and then motherhood, and it just became this thing that I was always focused on everybody else's happiness
Mhm.
and not focused on my own happiness. There were times, but not that many times. Not that many times to where I really was like, here's for instance, going to college.
Mhm.
I wanted to go to photography college. I was only 16, graduated from high school, got graduated early, buckled down, got good grades, and I wanted to go to college. And it was said to me that there wasn't money for me to go to college because, one, I was the baby, two, I was a female, and three, it was just kind of like, you know, uh, it was, my dad had the mentality, because he told my mom, you aren't going to go to college. You just need to be a woman and stay home and take care of the house and everything. So she didn't go on and go to college, but she went and raised us. And then they got divorced. So she didn't follow her dreams. So
Mhm.
I kind of took on that same pattern with my dad, to where there wasn't money for me to go to college. And he was retiring at that time and didn't want me to um, didn't want to look into his finances and everything at that point. So there wasn't money for me to follow my dreams. And so I just kind of like, even when I was married, it was kind of like I listened to that same thing again from my husbands. I had two husbands. I'm married now, but I had a former husband. And it was, I gave up my power. I gave up my voice. I gave up my dreams, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to, excel in the world. So that was kind of like how that progressed.
And what's really unusual about that is that, having the youngest, mum and dad coming and saying, "Hey, Marianne, you're the little one here, and you're going to have all of these responsibilities." Normally, that would be the eldest that would be given, "Hey, you've got to look after your younger brother and sister," and those responsibilities would be given to them. And then, at what point, Marianne, did you realise that as this was going on, and you recognized, hang on a minute, this is a pattern. I've actually just jumped straight into my mother's shoes and I'm doing all the things that she was doing, and she wasn't really that happy. And actually, I'm not either. What was that moment like? What was the thing that
Was it,
created that awareness?
it wasn't until I hit burnout, it
Mm.
wasn't until I went, caregiver burnout. Even though I have been a coach for 20 something years, 26 years, um, it was a pattern of external validation, external, I didn't know to look within myself. I didn't know. It was like to feel loved, to feel worthy, to feel all of those things were external. I was looking for validation outside of myself. And when I hit burnout, it was a key turning point where I set up boundaries. I had to heal myself. I began to look at what made me happy, where I wanted to, change some of the stories that I was living. And I started really diving into another one that is back there was something my dad said. I love to travel. I love to go. I just traveled up to my mom's in North Georgia, and I traveled down to South Florida to where my daughter is. And I love trips and I love going. And my dad always had this thing with me that was, when are you going to settle down and stop running the roads? And I hope I never stop running the roads. And I hope I never stop, because I have that wondrous, I have that newness of life. And so I bought into, I bought into it for a little bit. It was a myth for me, but I don't buy into it anymore. I thrive traveling.
Isn't it fascinating that, and all of the conversations I've had have got to a point where people have said, well, I had this awareness that something wasn't right. I wasn't enjoying my life anymore. This wasn't what I had planned for myself. I wasn't following my dreams. Then having that moment, then looking inwards and starting to work on themselves. And then kind of looking back, you sort of have these moments of, I'm going to reflect back and think, wow, so all of those things, like Dad saying, when are you going to settle down? You shouldn't be traveling around like that. And I can absolutely resonate with that, because my lifestyle, particularly when I worked for my previous an organization, I moved almost every year. So my children had many, many schools, and a lot of people would look at that as a negative thing. Whereas I love that. I love going and meeting new people, and I've got friends everywhere because of that, and that's the stuff that lights me up. So those moments where we know inside of us that that's actually what we're born to do, and it sounds a little cliche, right, that you're born to do that, but when that's the things that light you up, those are the things that bring you joy, that you enjoy doing, then you can start making a change.
Yeah, and start rewriting those stories. Like, instead of being responsible for everybody else, it's like being responsible for my own happiness. Being, and really being responsible for my own happiness. Like only doing things because I choose to, not because I'm expected to, because I'm expected as a mother to do something, because I'm expected to take over, raising my grandson because my daughter can't. There's so many things that we get into patterns. And one for me that I started asking was, well, what about me? What about me? When is it going to be Marianne's time? When is it going to be my time to live my dreams, to feel happy, I'm going to slide this way, to feel joyful, because it's so often that we can get so caught up into living everybody else's dreams and forgetting to check in on our own, to forgetting to check in on what makes us happy, what brings us joy, what makes us feel good. And I think if everybody starts asking those kinds of questions, it's like magic will start blossom,
So
it will start opening. And it's almost like, I could, the pivotal more, and I'm sorry, I'm moving, but one of the key things for me was when the sun is really bothering me. Um, there we go. Okay.
better.
The sun was killing me. um, One of the key things when I was asking those times about what about me, and focused externally, and when I shifted it, I became alive. And so I use that word because I think as women, we one of the key things that we want is we want to feel loved and we want to feel alive. It's a very some other people call it, feel good or feel what, but it's an aliveness. And when we tune back into ourselves and our source, and we can find that stillness and we can find that aliveness within us, now I can handle so much. I can sit here and be up at my mom's a few days ago with her with broken ribs and stuff, and I can be down here with my daughter. I can be on a call with you. I can be running my business, and I stopped yesterday alongside of the road and did coaching calls. We can handle so much because our emotion, our leadership within us is not running on empty. It's running on full. The gas tank is full. So
That's that whole process of you sort of turning inwards and making sure that you're constantly focusing on you so that you've got enough gas in the tank to continue to give. I love the way that you've been able to, through these experiences that you've had. Obviously you're very skilled in what you do too, in terms of coaching and helping women to actually start thinking about themselves. And I love that whole scenario where you said, I started asking myself these questions. What about me? And often we would think, well, that's you hear the shame method, that's selfish. What about you? Well, what about you?
mhm.
Have you heard that before? Yeah. Well, what about you? What's got
Yeah,
got nothing to do with you? And when we do that, when we start to focus on ourselves internally, we start to say, well, what about me? What are the things that make me feel alive? What are the things that bring me joy? And then you start doing those, you've got so much more to be able to continue to give. Because that whole our ingrained in us is often that you never stop wanting to give, right? It's not about saying, well, I'm not going to give anymore and it's just all about me, because that doesn't ever go away. That's
no.
part of the fabric of who you are, your DNA. But to
hmm
continue to be able to give, you have to have something to give. And if you keep depleting the stores on a regular basis and just keep handing out, but like a bank account, you keep handing out, handing out, handing out, you put nothing back in there, very soon you're going to be, broke and broken.
Yes, yes. And one thing that was so alive for me was that um, some of the things, the roles that I was playing, the people pleaser, the person who, wanted to give, 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 but it's not from the standpoint of being, um, you know, I not me first without everybody else, but it's really, I have to fill up my cup. I have
Mm.
to make sure that I'm the best that I can be, and feeling like love. You hear a lot these days about self-care and about loving ourselves and loving ourselves first and loving ourselves, but it's really more than that. I as this feminine energy is rising and everything, I think it's way more than just loving ourselves. I think it's a place where you've got to come from love.
Hmm.
It's not another doingness. It's our beingness. Our embodied beingness is love. And when we can come from there and we can love just be love rather than love is something, an expression that I do. I think it's just such a different place to start to begin, because then you're not asking, what about me? Because you are, alive. You are love. You're not trying to find love out there, because then you come from it. And the more you are that light, that are that expression, then it just keeps flowing through. And it's not like you have to go fill your cup up, because you are full.
I absolutely love that. I mean, one of the things that we are doing, and I know you're doing it too, in terms of like helping women rise and just ensuring that when you're coming from that place of love, you are love, and just sharing that with everyone. I just imagine a world where every single woman is actually doing that. Like if we all were coming from that place of I'm just going to be pure love. I'm just going to do whatever I can to feel that way myself. Then I can give that to everybody else. If everybody were doing that and we were actually helping each other rise, what a wonderful place
Yeah.
this world would be, right? Because
Yeah.
so often do we find that, I've had a number of conversations where we as women, we want that to happen, but then there are also, at times, women can often be the worst culprits and also pushing other women down. And there's,
Ooh.
there's this awful culture where we have also had that kind of seep its, I'm going to say ugly, raise its ugly head in lots and lots of society.
Yeah, well, I was, watching one of your other lives the other day, and then I just, after that, I was kind of looking around. I mean, we as women tear each other down on what we look like, how we think somebody should, the norms, if somebody is heavy, if somebody's, not beautiful, or, there's just all these expressions that it's not even the point of, um, like my mom didn't hold me down at going to college, because she didn't get to go to college. She was like, go to college, whatever, you want to do. But what my mom did hold me back from was, she would always say, you don't need to get pregnant again. You don't need to have another child.
Mhm.
I only had one, and
Mhm.
I didn't have her until I was 30.
Mhm.
And then I didn't have my second one until I was 40. And my mom was like, you don't need to have any more kids. You don't need to have kids. And so I find myself saying that to my youngest one. So maybe I am, maybe I need to revisit that. But I tell her, you don't need to have kids.
Yeah,
So,
this is the thing though, right? I mean, the more conversations you have like this, and exactly like you've just experienced, is nobody's perfect, and as much as we would love all women to be perfect, come from pure love and do all the wonderful things, we're not always that. The reality is we're
yeah,
not. But if we can try and do that as often as we can, and as you've just kind of had that moment of, oh, hang on a minute, well, that happened to me, that's what I was hearing from my mum. I didn't really like that, but actually, oh, I've that's what I've been saying to my daughter. It's we have by telling these stories like that, is you have those epiphany moments of, oh, okay, maybe I need to reframe or change the narrative around that, so that feeling, or that you kept that, you hung on to that, those words
yeah,
that your mother said, and you hung on to them for a reason, and now it's like the record replaying itself, and you've now realized, maybe I need to rewrite that record, that song this needs to be sung a little bit differently. So I love that these conversations are really almost telling our story, helping other women, but then also challenging ourselves to really think about, hmm, could I have done that a little bit differently? Could I come at it from a different angle? Am I really living my best life? And what the heck does that mean for Tracy Wilson, or Marianne St. Clair? What does my best life actually
yeah.
look like? How do I start creating that? And I love the fact that you talked about it's a sense of being that rather than doing that, because there's a vast difference.
And that's a lot more the feminine, the beingness and being in our body. and not up in our heads, trying to strategize and trying to do and make stuff happen. The beingness of the feminine that we haven't really, we're only beginning to just really surface this, is the beingness. It's being in our body. And I think one of the first steps to that whole process is the awareness, is slowing down. It's becoming aware of these patterns that we're doing. Why, where is that coming from? Why am I doing that? Whose voice is that telling me that that's what I should be doing? Because me running the roads means, oh my gosh, it feels so good. I get to go see somebody. I get to go see something new. I get to go on an adventure. And, that's what I tell my grandson. And that's what I told my kids is, let's go on an adventure. Where are we going? What are we doing? And if life was lived like that, if life was lived as your playground and it was just this adventure, what would you be doing differently?
Yeah.
What was told to us that we needed to get married or have kids, or what did life was supposed to look like? And then if it was lived as an adventure, what would we be doing? Good question, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I mean, all the things, like a lot of what you've come to realize today has actually come, or the journey that you've taken and to become the strong woman that you are now, very firm, have boundaries, living, even though there are things going on, you're still very grounded with who you are and what you're about. And that has all come about because you started asking yourself questions.
Mhm.
And we start doing that, then you can start to make a change. It brings about awareness. So start asking yourself these questions, as Marianne has done previously, and then eventually, slowly but surely, you can start taking action, start being the person that you want to be, and then all of a sudden you'll start doing and having all of the things that
Yes.
person who is being that does. Is just
Yes. You have to be it
they
first.
just have to. That you just there's no other outcome, because if you're being that, you're going to have the things that you want. So I want to say thank you very much for being here today, Marianne. I know that
Thank
you've
you.
got you're extremely busy. I know that you're caring for your daughter right now, and I want to send you and her lots of love and a big hug. And
Thank you.
before we go, I want to ask you this. I want to know, if you were to sit down beside your younger self. So if you were 10 or 15 years old, and you had to give yourself a piece of advice, what would that piece of advice have been?
The first and foremost thing that comes to my mind is be true to yourself. Sometimes that's go against the grain. Sometimes that means telling others no when so that you can tell yourself yes. Find ways to tell yourself yes more than yourself no. To be able to tell others no, it might be the case. And then I think really it's live life as an adventure. It's say yes to yourself, live life as an adventure, and really tune in to your body. The body has so much wisdom, and we live from here up. And if you could really start feeling and tapping into your emotions and your feeling senses and living more in that capacity, um, I think you need to bring your body with you rather than leaving it behind and taking an aspirin or numbing it because we need to um, find ways to cope in the world. I think it's like bring all of your messiness, your sassiness, your electricity, your weirdness, your bring all that with you and be and live fully alive.
Thank you so much. What a great message to end today's conversation with. Like I said, I'm sending you a big hug and lots of love, and I know that the rest of
Thank
the,
you.
the viewers and listeners will be doing exactly the same. where we will keep in touch, and I will continue to follow your journey because I'm absolutely loving what you're up to. But before we go, I want you to also just tell us what is the mission that you are creating now. Give us the name of that mission and what it is that you're up to.
So I have a mission about, and I'm tweaking it a little because I'm getting a little pushback on the Me First movement. And the Me First movement was not intended to be me and nobody else. It's really to say, let's look at what are the things that we're not living true to our authenticity, to where we're, not being true to ourselves. And so it is still, I'm so passionate about having women to begin to tune into themselves and resurface what brings them pleasure and play. And then the other part is embodied leadership. It's really helping everybody to come back home into their bodies, whether or not it's men or women, really to begin to have your emotions be to where you can up your levels of leadership, and whether or not that's in your family and how you're parenting, how you're being with yourself, how you're being with, in your business. It all taps into, and it really is such a gift for us to live from this place of embodied leadership.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. We're going to let everybody know where they can get a copy of the She Myth book. So those of you who've been watching, you know where to go and get it now. But if you'd like a copy of the She Myth book, then you need to go to amazon.com or amazon.com.au if you're in Australia, and get yourself either a paperback, hardback, and it's also available on Kindle as an ebook version as well. So go get your hands on that book.
And if they'd like to get a hold of me, I'm MarianneSt.Clair.com, Marianne St. Clair on all the social media platforms, and you can find me on Clubhouse. So lots to share about embodied leadership. Thank you so much, Tracy. You do not know how many times I am referring your book out. Because it's, we all need to really take a look at what myths we are living, from. And so I thank you for this gift that you and Vicky have brought forth to the world, because it needs to be just like preferred reading in families and stuff.
Well, thank you so much. It's that's fantastic that you are sharing it with others. And Vicky and I are both humbled that it's been accepted so well, and people are doing that, are sharing. I had somebody actually message me or come and caught up with me the other day, and she said every night she's sitting down and reading a chapter of this to her granddaughters who are currently only 6 and 7 years old, and they talk about the she myths, so that she said, so my granddaughters can see when they're being she myth, they can understand when these things are going on, and they know what to do if that's the case, because I want them to grow up as strong, strong, confident young woman. So it was like, wow, that is so amazing that grandmothers are seeing it fit to actually spend the time and take their little ones through the book too. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to say bye for now. Everybody who's watching today, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm hoping that you're enjoying these She Myth Eliminator stories. They are absolutely amazing, and I've been loving hearing what these empowering, inspirational women are doing and what they have done to get to the point that they're at today. And I know that there are many of you out there, and you know who I'm talking to. If you're watching this, you also have a story inside of you, and I want to invite you to get in contact with me so I can allow your story to also be heard and shared through this network. Because once you share your story, you will be helping, even if you help only one other woman, that it is an amazing thing that you're able to do by sharing your gift and your story to make this world a better place. So thank you, and bye for now.